Good afternoon. I'm with Robert Boyd, CEO of Endurance Gold. The symbol is EDG on the TSX venture. Robert, congratulations on the MRE.
Well, thank you very much, Robert, and it's a pleasure getting together with you again.
Yeah, it is. It's been a little bit, but we got a lot to talk about because, Endurance has been busy already in the new year with a few news releases. So the total, resource in the inferred category is 1.45 million ounces of gold at an average grade of 2.3 grams per ton, and that's not counting, the antimony or anything else. So that's just the gold grade. I'll say that when I saw the resource, I was pleasantly surprised. I figured it would be between 1 million and 1.5 million ounces, but the grade was a little higher than I had figured. Was that your sense as well, or was this exactly what you expected?
Well, it is what it is, Robert, and we did have we tried to provide some guidance during our exploration program as we lined up all of our drill holes, and we did kind of provide guidance that it might be in the 3 to 4 gram per ton range, based on the intersections that we had over an average width of 9 meters. And so essentially, because we're open pit constrained here, there is the opportunity to push down and pick up some of the surrounding zones that had lower grades that we probably would not have put in some of our compilation intersections in the past. So we were pleased, and I think one of the things you can see from our press release is that it's somewhat cutoff insensitive. We don't lose a lot of ounces, whether the cutoff's at 1 gram per ton or 0.3 grams per ton. So it shows that it's when you're in the mineralization, you're in it, and when you're out of it, you're out of it. And all we are here doing in some cases here, because it's open pit constrained, we were picking up some of the lower grade that we might have not have put in some of our reported intersections before outside of the main intersection. So yeah, no, we're pleased. I mean, when you drill, we've been drilling for since 2021, 127 holes, 32 kilometers of drilling, and a lot of intersections in that. And so we had a pretty good bang for our buck in terms of the number of ounces we were able to deliver at a total cost, all-in cost of about $9 Canadian, and that includes all the expenditures on our target generation work and surface sampling and all the activities and credits from tax credits, so BC mineral exploration tax credits. So very efficient discovery cost, and we hope we can continue to keep that up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say next, actually. It's 127 holes drilled, 32,000 meters approximately in total, and you put together 1.5 million ounces of gold above 2 grams average. That's about as good as I've ever seen. I think maybe I've seen 2 other companies be more efficient than that, but obviously a lot has to do with the ore body, doesn't it, Robert?
Yeah, and it all has to do with location too, and that's what's driving the cost. We don't have helicopter support. We can drive onto the property year round, and it's low elevation, so there's no high cost and snow removal and safety issues related to that. So it's been very, we're blessed to be in a good location in a well-known and productive gold camp that's already produced multi-million ounces of historic production at the adjoining Bralorne Pioneer sequence of mines from 1930s to the 1970s, and now being reactivated, as you know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So the camp, the Bralorne camp is reawakening here in the last couple of years, and it's actually accelerating with what Talisker is doing, and now with Endurance. It's interesting, Robert, because look, I've known you for I think 5 years now, and I followed the endurance story since 2021, and it's been one of my top picks in the junior mining sector since the inception. And I've oftentimes in the last few years been shaking my head why the market wasn't getting it, but it seemed like something really clicked with this resource, that suddenly people became aware of the quality of this project and the quality of the results. It's strange because you publish news releases for 6 years now, and the drill results have been out there, but it seemed like something suddenly snapped for people that they got it. What do you think it was? Is it just the market environment, or is there something magical about putting the resource and having those numbers that you can state, here it is?
Well, the Bralorne Camp has been a camp that's attracted a lot of attention in the past, and hasn't delivered a lot of new discoveries aside from the existing mining operations. So I think there's a natural skepticism. There was myself when I worked for Homestake Mining Company about going and wanting to spend time in this camp, thinking, well, uh, it's being crawled all over, but we've ended up with a different type of gold system here in these cataclastite breccias, and so they're not the quartz veins, the traditional type of things that the old timers and even us in the business were looking for up through the 80s. And so it was overlooked, and it's also our part of the system where we're exploring and consolidating is this antimony rich camp, which is a high level setting in a brittle domain, and so the gold is finer, and so the old timers would have focused and directed their attention going after the coarse gold in the parallel drainage that hosts the parallel structure that hosts the Bralorne Pioneer system. So I think that was part of it. There's also myself as a person that in the business is one that's known to under promise and over deliver. I focus on telling people what the results are, but not overly promoting our activities, and focusing on hoping that good technical evaluation will recognize what we have, and hence our compilation of results and statistics and things like that help people to message that this was going to be a good system. And the high hit ratio is an indication of why we were able to deliver a good resource at a low cost.
Very good. What about the antimony? I mean, look, this is a gold project. This is a gold deposit. That's where the bulk of the financial value is, in the gold. But you got a lot of antimony here. Is this something that you plan to focus on in 2026? Are you going to do more, metallurgical testing to see how much of the antimony you can recover?
Yeah, well, just in the compilation of results that we provided ahead of our MRE, we did indicate that there was pretty consistently always an antimony elevation in most of our intersections. And I think the number we provided in the past was, with the 4-gram intersection, was about a 0.2% antimony. So we're in a situation now where we say, from a pure independence perspective, and looking at this, we wanted to make sure that we understood how are we going to recover that antimony. Is it going to be in a concentrate, or are we going to be where we're looking to get credits for that antimony in a concentrate, or are we going to pull out a separate product out of that concentrate and sell it? So those are the kind of things that would drive how we attribute any value to that antimony in the resource. So we felt, look, that's a value add that we can do and conduct as the year progresses, as we upgrade our resource with the additional drilling that we want to do. We feel is potential to increase the size of our existing and announced resource, increase the quality of it, and at the same time, we're doing the testing on the antimony that'll tell us what can we contribute in terms of gold equivalency to the resource in the future. So but even when we did our initial work, the suggestion was that the antimony might contribute another 10 to 20% in rock value at the most to the gold thing, and that this was primarily a gold deposit, and it stood on its own as a gold deposit, as you've already noted in terms of the grade. So what we're going to be delivering this year is the goal of doing the work that will deliver a higher quality resource in terms of a better engineered classification above inferred, but also do the test work that gives us the comfort to say how is that antimony going to fit into the credits that we anticipate getting with our gold in this project.
The one thing that the antimony could be very helpful with is for the permitting, and maybe even in terms of some funding possibilities with the federal government. Because if you look at the metals that are critical for the military, I would say antimony is definitely in the top 5, and there's a scarcity of it in North America and outside of China. So that's what has me interested in it. And we've seen at the Stibnite mine in Idaho that really helped them a lot, even though that is a gold mine.
Well, absolutely. And, based on the prior guidance we had in terms of antimony content, if you just half that at a 0.1%, if we might have that as an example, and that has the potential on the 19.6 million tons that we reported in our inferred resource at 0.1%. That's potentially a lot of supply of antimony into the market. And so we've got the experts working on it. The same experts that were involved in evaluating Stibnite Idaho's process sheet are the same experts that we're working with on our additional test work. So we've got the right people working with us, and we feel comfortable that we'll be able to understand enough about the antimony to deliver some additional value to this project over and above the gold content, because the gold content in the constrained in the open pit is the open pit component is about 2.23 grams per ton, about 1.1 million ounces, and that grade falls within the top quartile of open pit grades in North American gold deposits. So it is a significant grade on a standalone basis for the gold itself. So if we can add even more to that with this location, it's only going to make the project look better. And yes, it could have a strategic component to it, but we want to focus that this is not a strategic minerals project that depends entirely on the military. It's a gold project that we hope will the military or the strategic reason and uses of antimony, which are much broader than the military, but that's what's driving the especially the U.S. federal interest in antimony. So
absolutely. So let's get back to the project and the gold expansion potential. So what are the priorities in 2026 for how we can expand this gold domain?
Well, as we stated, we feel our plan will be to be back and building and dedicating a rig or possibly two rigs just to the MRE, in increasing the in-pit resource potential and expanding it, of course, at depth, because this system's still wide open at depth, and we haven't done a lot of deep drilling, but we've done enough deep drilling in one section to demonstrate that the system has continuity potential at depth. So there's the two things there are the objective of building out and making that resource. But most importantly, we did some target generation work this past year, and that's generated 3 very good targets with similar types of geochemical signatures to what we already have of similar size. One in particular is just to the south of the MRE and what we call the Eagle offset target, and that's about 1.3 kilometers long with a strong geochemical signature that includes up to 5 grams per ton gold in soil samples and very limited outcrop. There's a lot of till and scree and other cover in the area, so it's very difficult to get through and see what's in the bedrock and what's causing this anomaly. But the two outcrops of the bedrock, we've managed to get grab samples out of there up to 8.1 grams per ton gold and anomalous gold in the second outcrop. So it's telling us there's gold in outcrop in the system, and now we have to do the systematic work, which will probably for us, rather than trying to trench this because of the thicker cover in that area, we're just likely to get some trails in there or pads in there and do offensive drilling across this target and see if we can tag into something significant underlying this anomaly. So that's just the one target. That's 1.3 kilometers long, and that falls within the boundaries of our existing permit. Some of the testing of that target can be done in our current permit area, and so the next step is these targets to the east, which are kilometer scale as well. And those targets, we have a very strong geochem anomaly. One that's about 1 square kilometer in size, another one that's got a trend of over a kilometer. And both we've demonstrated significant gold in grab samples from within those anomalies up to, on the Kelvin anomaly in particular, up to about 25 gram per ton gold in grabs on multiple different veins over that trend associated with a geochem anomaly. So it looks like some sort of vein stockwork, but we don't fully understand it yet. So that's going to need to be tested with drilling. And then we go over to the what we call our Whisky Jack anomaly, and that one there's a lot of till in that area, but where it is incised in one location by a creek, there is a bedrock exposure. We had a high soil sample, and we dug out in that area and did find gold in bedrock, and that averages 8 grams over 1.6 meters in one location. So we have benchmarked that there is bedrock gold associated with that 1 square kilometer anomaly. So we need to now do some drilling in that area to understand it much better. So we're delivering a lot of upside potential in this district, and none of these targets have ever been drilled. The Eagle offset to the south, there's no sign that there's any prospecting activity or blasting by old timers on the existing outcrops. On the Kelvin, there is an old adit on one of these veins that was put in the 1930s to chase one of these higher grade veins at a low elevation. But we found multiple veins, I think probably at least four in there, and we suspect that there's more of these narrow veins in only a 10% outcrop area. And the other anomaly at Whisky Jack is just totally covered. So we've got to do a lot more work to understand that. I think probably what's going to have to be done is offensive drilling there. So
let's go back to it's a target-rich environment. When I saw the news release that you put out, what was it, a little over a week ago? Or yeah, I guess it was 2 weeks ago. It was right before MIF. My eyes popped out because as somebody who was very bullish already, I said I didn't realize how bullish I need to be. So let's go to this large soil anomaly to the south. So this is part of the Royal shear trend. It's just been slightly offset.
Well, yeah, that's the way the anomaly looks in terms of we don't have enough outcrop in the area. It's very poor outcrop up through that area, so we don't exactly know what's happening. We call it an offset because it is physically an offset from the actual trend. So it could be a structural offset, or it could be the gold mineralizing system jumps from one structure to another, which can happen in these orogenic gold systems. But whatever it is, it's hosted in the same kind of altered mafic volcanics with intense sericite iron carbonate alteration in the limited outcrops we do see, and it's got the same kind of mag destruction type alteration associated with it as well. So it's got a signature that's very similar to what we saw at where we've defined our MRE on the Royal Shear trend. So we see it as all part of that Royal Shear trend, and we just don't know if it's an offset or a structural offset by a late fault, or it's jumped over into a slightly subparallel structure related to the Royal Shear. So.
And there's no outcrop. I mean, I guess there's a few areas where you can see some outcrop, right? But it's largely covered.
Yeah, well, further up that drainage was a kind of a probably a glacial center at one point, and so there was a lot of glacial gravel and probably deflated rock glaciers and stuff like that up in that area. So there's a lot of cover by the till. Then that's complicated by topography, where there's a lot of shift of it in a thick scree slopes. And then on top of all of that, we had the volcanic explosion at Mount Meager 50 kilometers to the east 2,000 years ago that dumped all this white volcanic ash over everything. So you've got a whole mess of stuff that's sitting on top of your rocks up there. And if you're fortunate, you can get outcrops on ridge spurs and things like that. But down in off the edge of these spurs, you have a lot of cover and very difficult to see what's happening. But there were two outcrops that poked out, and they're the right kind of rocks, the right kind of alteration, and the right kind of magnetic signature. So it's got all the earmarks of a very good target, together with the anomalism that we report there, that's 20 to 100 times background, with up to 5 grams gold in soils and associated antimony and arsenic with that anomaly. So it's definitely a high priority target that looks like it's got all the earmarks of being the same system continuing off to the south, just offset slightly.
That's a very large target area. I mean, it's over 1,000 meters strike extent, and it's about 500 meters wide at the fattest area. I mean, that's even larger than the MRE area, or it's close to being as large. So how do you drill test this? I mean, it's a completely virgin target area. What's the plan of attack there?
Well, we have to work on that, but likely just a little a shallow drill fence with RC drilling. Our RC drilling was very successful as the initial phases down at where we have our MRE at the Eagle and Imperial areas, and often these zones are break down near surface with the weathering. So in the shallow hits, if you're testing with the shallow hits, RC gives you the higher indication of higher potential of recovery, less geological information because of the chips. So that will be our way of targeting in, and then once we target in where the hottest part of that is based on RC drilling, then we'll target it with diamond drilling. Okay. So to answer your question, a fence, and then once we have the fence and structure defined, if we're fortunate with grade over width, then we follow it with diamond drilling.
Very good. Okay. Going back to the main zone and the Imperial Zone in particular, one of the key areas of joy in 2025 was chasing that Royal Shear contact, I guess you call it, between the hanging wall and the footwall at depth. You had some really high grade intercepts there. And it just seems logical to me that as you chase this at depth, you might experience some more joy and some higher grade gold. What's the plan there? How many holes do you plan to use to investigate that in 2026?
Well, we haven't summarized and put together a detailed budget yet, but we would with the program the coming year will be chasing the system at depth, and it's never wise to chase it with just a few holes. I think if you're going to chase a system at depth, you're going to want to have a lot of holes. They're expensive and they take time, and and you know, and we want to make sure that if we test down there, we test it thoroughly and don't walk away because we have disappointment in a single hole or something with our drill testing. So we will have a decent program, but we haven't put down the budget yet on what's going to be allocated to deep drilling versus the shallow drilling. We feel pretty comfortable, and we know where we can fill in the gaps on the in-pit MRE because that's pretty straightforward. It's pure 3D modeling in terms of where you put additional holes there, but that's not going to double the resource. That might add 20% if we're lucky to the existing MRE. What's going to really grow the resource is growing the system at depth and a long trend at depth. So,
okay, very good. So still too early to say how many meters and how many rigs, but I'm assuming we're going to have at least 2 rigs this year, and there is a possibility for a 3rd rig.
Oh yeah, I think so. Especially as we bring in the targets to the east, we could dedicate 1 rig to that, and if we're successful with RC, perhaps add a second one or add a diamond drill to start testing these targets. So we see a minimum 2 drill program this year, and possibly more. So
okay. And then what about a PEA or a PFS? Is it too early to put economics on this because you've still got so many areas to test across the broader property package, or is a PEA something that you're contemplating at this point in time?
Well, I think, yes, we are contemplating it, and I think we stated that our goal would be to commence a PEA this year. We haven't provided guidance on when we anticipate getting that completed because we don't have an engineering group lined up at this point. But this is a big enough resource already that there is the potential to demonstrate economics, but that's one of the things you want to do with a PEA. Can we demonstrate the economics of what we already have? And if we can and demonstrate that it's favorable, then anything we make to make it bigger, you just continue to adjust and reassess your study. And part of what we have to do too is also understanding how we're going to manage waste. If we have a concentrate plan, where are we going to put the tailings? You know, these are all issues that have to be addressed from an engineering perspective and from a social acceptance perspective too. So they're all part of the next and logical steps to help address the questions of the community. And so it would be contained in a PEA, which would always be a moving target, even if we get it going and come to some conclusion based on what we have. It will always be adjusted to address all those engineering issues and surface access issues that are going to have to be required as part of an economic evaluation.
Very good. And the weather has been fairly mild this year in the Northwest. I don't know if it will stay mild. I'm not a meteorologist, but is there a possibility that this drill season could start a bit earlier, like maybe in April?
I think that's a possibility for sure. There is not a significant snowpack right now in Goldbridge. That could change. We had an early snowpack, but that all disappeared in some mild weather. So, and you know, the lower elevation can be pretty much done year round. It's just if there is a snowpack, it's going to be a snow management issue. So But our objective is to hopefully be back, if there's no significant snowpack, be back in April for sure. So, but you know, it all depends on contractors too, because the contractors are trying to deal with a lot of clients that have raised money. So we are trying to get them pinned down, and we have the contractors in place. We just don't have a firm timing in place yet.
Okay, yeah, that's something that is a challenge across the entire industry right now in 2026. We just don't have enough skilled labor who know what the hell they're doing. Look, you have two other projects. We don't talk much about these, but one in Alaska, one in the Yukon. I think there is a lot of value there that's sitting. It's kind of hidden because the company doesn't really market these two. Are there any plans to get some value out of those?
Yeah, we definitely want to try to do something to see some activity come back to Elephant this year, and so it is permitted for helicopter supported type drilling. It's relatively road accessible, but for that low impact type initial test holes and stuff, it's often best to do with a helicopter. Then you've got less reclamation issues. So we have that kind of permit in place right now. And we're just looking at what we can do there. One of the scenarios is to fund it ourselves, but the other is to look at spinning it out and creating a separate company around it, in a plan of arrangement or something like that, where we spin this out from the company. So that one makes sense because Alaska is a good place to work politically right now, and we're in central Alaska on state mineral claims, so it doesn't have some of the issues that some of the other projects with coastal drainages have in Alaska. So we're fortunate, and we've got a property there with a 140 meter intersection of 0.4 grams in a reduced intrusive hosted gold setting that warrants follow-up and a lot more drill testing. And we got 6 kilometer scale targets like that. Some big geochem anomalies on surface that have never had a drill hole in them, all associated with a de-roofing granodiorite intrusive and the classic reduced intrusive hosted setting that exists in the Yukon, as well as Alaska. That belt continues right across the border. So it's got all the earmarks of a system that needs a lot of work, and the type of systems that are delivering a lot of success for shareholders in the Yukon, especially right now. So
yeah, I was gonna say this is like a Sitka snowline kind of project that you have there in Alaska. A hole by Plosterdome in 1992 was over a half gram over 100 meters, and then you drilled 0.4 grams over 147 meters. And so, yeah, this is a project that could sit as a standalone asset in a totally separate public company. So the shareholders should definitely be aware of that. Look, Robert, I'll give you the last word here. Maybe you could tell us what shareholders can expect from Endurance Gold in 2026.
Well, yeah, sure. We're going to have a busy year. There's obviously as we've gone through and explained here, we've got catalysts on Reliance in particular, where we're going to be moving forward with additional drilling to expand the MRE, both in pit and at depth. We're going to be drill testing the target to the south of Eagle and the Eagle offset target, with the hope of delivering a new extension to the system, a significant extension down there. And then once permits are in place, which are under the application process, we will bring in those targets out to the east and start testing those. We're fortunate in BC. We've got a very pro-government, and they're promising turnaround on these permits that of 40 to 120 days. So based on that guidance provided by our premier, we should have those permits in place for the spring. So, and we'll be testing those. So lots going on there. And of course, upgrading our metallurgical test work to say, will we be delivering a antimony component, and will we be delivering better recovery of gold to our existing concentrate? So,
Thank you, Robert.
okay, thank you, Robert.